Hello, my name is Julia Henry. This is the Cure Project for HEA 447, where I'll be investigating employment and heart disease. We are going to begin with a quick review of the literature that delves into relationships between employment status and heart disease. Researchers have examined cardiovascular risks associated with unemployment and employment. Psychosocial factors such as stress and working conditions, along with job satisfaction, have been included in previous analyses. Kivmaki and Kawachi have identified employment and work stressors as a risk factor for cardiovascular disease, while others have used myocardial infarction to measure the outcomes of cardiovascular disease among those who are unemployed and experiencing financial difficulties, most notably during the recession. To start our analysis, I asked this research question: among working adults, are those who are employed equally as likely to have been told they have coronary heart disease versus those who are unemployed? If we look solely at employment, is there a difference between CHD rates? We are hypothesizing that there will be a difference, that among working adults, those who have been told they have coronary heart disease are more likely to be unemployed than employed. For this analysis, I used IPUM's database and STA program using 2015 data. Our initial analysis looked only at employment status, but once I started gathering data, it led us to investigate further by controlling for a number of factors, starting with age. We also controlled for smoking status, as this is a risk factor for coronary heart disease, health insurance coverage, which can be affected by employment, and having access to prevention and treatment. We looked at both men and women. And lastly, I looked at educational attainment because this also affects employment. I do want to take a minute to take a closer look at age. Working adults range from 18 years to 64. I controlled for age by breaking them up into age bands. The age range with any statistical significance is that from 35 to 44. I filtered the rest of the data through this age range. Some things to think about. This age group has the largest percent employed at 79.3% of the population in the United States, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Before controlling and filtering for this age group, some factors that were possibly masking any relationship might have been the tendency of younger age groups being healthier, and they also make up a larger percentage of the labor force who are unemployed. Older people are beginning to retire and have higher rates of chronic diseases, which can include CHD. Now let's take a look at the data. We'll first take a look at employment status and coronary heart disease only within the age group 35 to 44. Here we can see a difference. As we initially predicted, there is a higher percentage of people who have been told they have CHD among the unemployed at 2.4% versus only 4.4% of those who are employed. Next, let's look at the difference having insurance coverage makes. Again, we're looking at those aged 35 to 44. And there was some statistical significance that having coverage or not made a difference, as you can see a slight increase in those with no insurance being told they have CHD. But once we filtered for men and women, a larger difference emerged. As you can see, a larger percentage of men with no insurance and who are unemployed have CHD. There was no statistical significance among women. In fact, females aged 35 to 44 years who had no coverage had never been told they had coronary heart disease. Women who were covered and told they had CHD were less than 1%. Next, we will look at smoking status. Current everyday smokers, former smokers, and those who have never smoked. We can see higher percentages of CHD among the unemployed. Let's look at smoking status and insurance coverage. On the left, we have former smokers who are insured. Among them, there was statistical significance among former smokers who showed higher percentages of CHD, especially among those unemployed. This could be because they have insurance and have access to healthcare visits and stopped smoking for health reasons, and may have become unemployed due to health reasons and maintaining their insurance. Among those without health insurance on the right, there is significance among the unemployed who are current everyday smokers. The percentage of those told they had CHD was about 7 times higher than those who were employed and had no coverage, as well as those who were employed and had coverage. I then separated smoking status into men and women. For women, there was no statistical significance for any category, even though female smoking rates are almost equal to men. On the left, we have former smokers among those covered by insurance. Notice again the large proportion of those who are not working and have CHD. On the right, we see a much larger proportion of men who have CHD and are current everyday smokers and are unemployed. Last, we're going to look at educational attainment among those aged 35 to 44. Among the uninsured, the graph on the right, high school graduates had a higher incidence of being told they have CHD than GED holders, and more high school grads were unemployed at the time they were told. While only those who were employed and insured were told they had CHD, it was only 0.8%. Among those with some college, only those who were unemployed and uninsured were told they had CHD at 5%. A larger proportion of the unemployed with insurance were also told they had CHD. Higher education is a predictor of employment and health. Among those insured, only a small percentage of those with a bachelor's degree were unemployed, and none of them were told they have CHD. All of those who were told they have CHD were employed. However, it was a very small percentage, 0.1%. No uninsured people with bachelor's degrees were told they have CHD. Looking at the data, there does appear to be an association between employment status and coronary heart disease, which answers our research question. Are those who are unemployed equally likely to be told they have CHD? No, when other factors are taken into consideration, those who are unemployed are more likely to be told they have coronary heart disease than those who are employed, thus proving an association as our hypothesis supposed. More research into men and the effects unemployment has on them and their rates of CHD should be investigated further. When we looked at our data, men were disproportionately affected by unemployment and being told they had CHD, bringing to our attention possible disparities that contribute to their diagnosis. As previous literature has pointed out, we should continue to take a more comprehensive look. Our data analysis has confirmed there are additional factors than simply being unemployed or employed. Whether or not they had insurance coverage and were smokers influenced their outcomes as well. Among those who are unemployed, current or former smokers, we can look at preventative measures that might be helpful in avoiding chronic conditions before any disability might affect their employment status. Among unemployed men, resources available to those without insurance, such as smoking cessation, should be examined, as well as their reasons for unemployment status to help manage and prevent or reduce CHD outcomes. What resources are men missing that affects this outcome? It might be beneficial to look at race as well as incarceration rates to investigate further unemployment and lifestyle habits that contribute to the risk of CHD. This concludes our data analysis on employment and coronary heart disease. I hope it offered some insight into the association between them and the different factors to be addressed in the future to improve the rate of CHD outcomes among the unemployed.